What is your "we will never speak of this again" moment? I got up one night to get some water, and found that my teenage son was in the kitchen getting food. He was behind the kitchen counter, so I could only see him from the waist up. When he came around the counter into the hall, two things happened simultaneously. He noticed me, and his eyes grew wide in horror, and I saw that he was but naked except for a pair of socks. He starts trying to panic run backwards on the tile floor, but ended up slipping and taking a hard seat on the tile. I made sure he was okay, then went back to bed and laughed my ass off. Years later, we were driving and reminiscing about funny memories. I said, "Do you remember that night?" And he cut me off with, "Yes." I didn't even have to specify which night. We knew, and we were silent. My brother had an imaginary girlfriend with an imaginary Facebook profile. She would post loving, imaginary messages on his wall. I asked about her a few times, then got a little more persistent. After a while, I got suspicious and did an image search for her photos. They were for another person in another country. Also, no one ever saw the imaginary girlfriend. If someone asked me about her after seeing their loving Facebook exchanges, I would kind of imply that we met to spare my brother and myself embarrassment. Eventually, he stopped talking about the imaginary girlfriend and she stopped posting imaginary things. I will never ask what happened to her. I'm pretty sure he will never mention her again. She's still on Facebook. When my best friend died, we figured he would have liked a sky burial kind of. So at the height of the funeral party we released his ashes into heavens with a giant balloon. After a few meters of flight the string has snapped, and his remains covered the mourning crowd. Everyone made their best efforts to get very drunk as soon as possible. We will never speak of this ever. My father and I had a North Cold War. There has been a tacit agreement never to speak of it, and we haven't. When I was a teenager, my mother found my hedgerow Norp stash. Both parents confronted me with it when I got home from school, and of course confiscated it, and of course threw it in the bin, or so I thought. Months later, I happened upon my collection, hidden at the bottom of my dad's wardrobe. Hidden. From my mother, clearly. So I took it back and hid it in my bedroom. What's he going to do? Tell my mother I'd taken the Norp he'd hidden from her that he was supposed to have thrown out? And he found it again, and took it back, and hid it, and I found it again, and took it back, and hid it. This went on for years, and it's never been mentioned, and it never will be. I had internal bleeding and really low blood pressure. I was in the hospital and instructed to not try to stand or walk since I'd faint. I didn't obey that. I went to take a piss and my girlfriend saw and chased after me. She caught up just in time to throw herself between me and the floor to prevent me from cracking my head open as I fell back unconscious, dick out, peeing all over everything on the way down. I awoke with her sandwiched between me and the tile floors, lying in a pool of my piss, and that's actually the moment I realized I should marry that girl. I did, but that's not the story I tell when someone asked, "When did you know she was the one?" The smoking hot guy I met the prior weekend asked me out, and naturally I said yes. Because I'd just met him, I asked if I could drive, and he said no problem. On the way to get some grub, we're cruising along with the perfect tunes playing in the car, windows down, on an absolutely beautiful night. He looks over, I look over, we're both just sparkling, you know? It was one of those moments where you want to take a mental snapshot, and then, I guess we must have driven through an area of something he was allergic to, because he sneezed a couple small ones, then with one massive blow, honked a huge wad of snot all over my windshield and dashboard. But unbelievably, that's not the worst part. No. He pretended like it didn't happen, and went about talking, and scooping it up with his hands and smearing it onto his pants. I was beyond mortified. I was throwing up in my mouth, my eyes were watering, and he didn't want me to pull over to get it cleaned up. We had to go to dinner like that, with snotty pants. Sigh. I ended up marrying him. We have never, ever spoken of it again, not even 40 years. This is my friend's story. She smoked weed a bit in high school but obviously hid it from her parents. This one time she came downstairs in the morning to find a joint sitting on the kitchen counter. She knew for sure it wasn't hers and that she wouldn't be stupid enough to leave one out like that. Her mother soon after walked downstairs and started cleaning up around the kitchen. When she ran into the joint, she paused, locked eyes for a bit with my friend, said and quickly brushed it into her hand and got rid of it. They both pretended it never happened. One day, about 7 years ago or so, I went hiking with my sisters. It was fun but exhausting, so I decided to take a shower when we got back home. I was also in the mood for some extra stress relief, so I grabbed my fleshlight and sneak it in with me. I start undressing and notice a little brown spot about halfway down my inner thigh. Upon close inspection, I realize it's a big, fat fucking tick. Oh shit! I think, this bastard's been stealing my blood for hours, and who knows how many more are on me that I can't even see. I know I can't handle this situation alone, so I do what any sane, rational person would do. I burst out of the bathroom after fumbling with the doorknob, run straight into the living room where my eldest sister is watching TV, and say, "I have a situation that requires your assistance," except all she heard was, "But, help?" So she looks at me confused and then bursts out laughing. That was when I realized I'm standing in the middle of the living room, completely naked. I cover my shame and run back to the bathroom to grab a towel. My sister stops laughing enough to come check on me, and I finally manage to put into words that I have a tick and need help removing it, as well as checking for more. My mom hears all the racket and starts coming out of her room to see what's what. At the same time, my sister looks me dead in the eye, with the kind of face that just screams, "You're a goddamned moron," as she quickly and elegantly grabs my fleshlight off the bathroom counter and chucks it into the cabinet under the sink right before my mom turns the corner. She ended up helping get rid of the tick and check for more, obviously trying very hard not to laugh, while I just sit there in silent misery. Afterward, I beg her to never mention this to anyone. I threw my fleshlight away later that week, on garbage day, so nobody else would see it. My sister passed away a couple days ago from an overdose that we believe was a suicide. Oddly enough, this is my favorite memory of her, despite how embarrassing it is, although I'll never be able to share it with the rest of my family. My wife and I were at my cousin's apartment in a big city. They have a balcony on the 40th something floor. We were all outside on the balcony drinking some beers and getting a little drunk. My wife rests her beer can, thank God it was a can and not a bottle or glass, on the railing of the balcony. I scold her and go to move it when my half-drunk and clumsy self knocks it off, and we watch in horror as it falls in slow motion 40 stories and hits the ground like a bullet next to a crowd of people. We never mentioned it to anyone. My husband and I were going to Thanksgiving dinner at the house of some of my dad's family that I only kind of knew. We got there, knocked, and a woman I didn't recognize let us in. We went into the home and there wasn't anyone there, there was no dinner, etc. So we're making small talk with this lady and I ask when everyone is coming. She asks what I mean. Turns out we were at the wrong house. The woman just thought we were friends of her husband, because he would randomly bring people home, and that we had simply arrived before he did. Ugh, I did this once. My buddy moved to a new place I was only vaguely familiar with. I pull up at what I thought was the house, get out with my arms full of beer and food and my dog by my side, walk in the back door and start yelling for my buddy. Place has a lot of stuff in it, not what I would have expected from him having just moved there. Then this dog comes down the stairs I've never seen before, followed by this old scraggly dude who I'm surprised didn't shoot me. He was actually kind of friendly considering. My buddy lived next door, come to find out. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.